Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's our Monday, March 10th, 2025 regular meeting. If we'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is Jim Fitzsimmons, commission member. Next to Jim is Jeff Cohan, also a commission member. To my immediate left is J.P. Vanoit, who's the vice chairperson of the commission. Next to J.P. is David Parent, who's an alternate on the commission. And next to David is Joe Sanders, who is also an alternate. At the lower table to my left is Cheryl Ann Tubby, our recording secretary, and next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, our town planner, and I'm Jim Sykes, the chairperson of this commission. And before we get started, as Mr. Allenson is not here this evening, I ask if Mr. Sanders, if you would take his place when voting on any of the applications before us. And at this point in time, our first order of business is to consider for approval the minutes of our February 10th, 2025 meeting. Any commission members have any additions, corrections to the minutes? If I hear none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of February 10th, 2025 for the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? With that, we're going to move on to our first item on the agenda. And let me just say, as far as the public hearings, if you see items number 1 and 2, there's no action that's going to be taking on those, although we initially anticipated the continuation. As far as the first one, the text amendment for section 6.38 for middle housing, we've asked our corporate counsel to look at that amendment prior to the commission continuing the public hearing and perhaps taking some action on it. That also corresponds to item number 2, which is the text amendment side regulations. The same comment holds true with that. So it brings us to our first item that we're going to hear, item number 3, which is the text amendment for Paradise Hills Vineyard, Section 2.2 Farm Wineries. And Mr. Cohan, if you would please read the legal notice and note all correspondence for the record.
The following public hearings will be heard at the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting Monday, March 10th, 2025, 7 p.m. in the Robert Parisi Council Chambers of Town Hall, located at 45 South Main Street. Item number 3 is application 902-25. I'm sorry. Item 2 is application 501-25, which is the text amendment request from Paradise Hills Vineyard to amend the definition of farm winery in section 2.2. And for correspondence, we have a letter from the law office of Jerry Farrell to Chairman Sykes and the commission. We have a memorandum from Keith Rosenfeld, Senior Community Planner, dated February 24th, 2025, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as Mayor and the Town Planner. We have a letter from Dorcas Pryor to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated March 3rd, 2025. We have a letter from Sean and Teresa Doherty, dated March 3rd, 2025, to the Planning and Zoning Department. We have a letter from Kim Gregoire to the Town Planner, dated March 4th, 2025. We have a note from Renee Miller, Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, to Planning and Zoning Commission. That's dated March 4th, 2025. We have a memorandum from Peter Hornack, engineer planner of the Water and Sewer Division, to the town planner, dated February 25th, 2025. We have a letter from Torrance Downs to Kevin Pagini, town planner, dated March 4th, 2025. We have another letter from Jerry Farrell to Kevin Pagini, dated town planner, dated March 5th, 2025. We have a memorandum from the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments to Chairman Seichter and the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated March 5th, 2025. We have a letter from Andrea Harney to town planner and the commission, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Lisbeth Steen Hackett and Craig Hackett, dated March 8th, 2025, to Planning and Zoning Department. And I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
That's stapled. Those are the letters. Letter 12.
Oh, there's
13,
okay.
they're all stapled.
Yeah, there's a couple other letters attached to that last one. Another letter from Colleen Makepeace to the town planner and Planning and Zoning Department, dated March 10th, 2025. And I believe the last one is another letter from Peter Zernowiski, sorry for the pronunciation, dated March 10th, 2025, to Kevin Pagini, town planner. And I believe that is it.
No, they just keep rolling in. Here you go, Mr. Cohen. They were just given to us tonight.
Okay. Letter from, yeah, I did not get these. A letter from Liz Davis to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated March 10th, 2025. A letter from Karen Murata to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated 3/10/2025. A letter from Mike Miller to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated March 10th, 2025. Anything else?
I think that takes care of it, Mr.
Okay.
Cohen. Thank you. Actually, I was remiss. I should have asked, while Mr. Cohen was reading the correspondence, I should have asked the applicant if they please come forward and prepare for your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good evening. Please introduce yourself and you can begin your presentation.
I'm Jerry Farrell Jr. of the law offices of Jerry Farrell Jr., located at 35 South Main Street. Members of the Ruggiero family are here this evening. They're the owners of Paradise Hills, both here at the table and in the audience as well.
Richard Ruggiero, 15 Windswept Hill Road, founder of Paradise Hills.
And Brenda Ruggiero, 15 Windswept Hill Road, owner as well.
Thank you. So we're here before you tonight seeking a text amendment to the regulations that concern farm wineries. Wallingford zoning regulations regarding farm wineries have not been amended in quite a number of years. Our purpose in seeking the proposed text amendment is to allow farm wineries to have additional liquor licenses that the state statutes otherwise allow them to have. We are also seeking to align the zoning regulations with the business environment and the changing weather and climate conditions which farm wineries find themselves in 2025. The weather itself and climate change has been something that has tremendously affected farm wineries in Connecticut and in Wallingford. All of you are undoubtedly aware of the tremendous hailstorm that hit East Wallingford approximately 1 year ago. Hail is not very kind to grapes. It causes fruit to fall off the grapevine onto the ground. It bruises fruit that does not stay on the grapevine. Paradise Hills, like other East Wallingford and Northford farms, lost a decent amount of its harvest as a result of the hail. Less grapes to harvest means less grapes to produce into wine. I have farm winery clients throughout Connecticut who are facing similar challenges due to the weather. I hear at least once a week from a farm winery. Many of those clients tell me that they're barely making enough profit to stay in business. I've handled the sale of several farm wineries over the last 2 years where founding farm winery families exited the business because they told me it had become too difficult. The state of Connecticut and some other towns have assisted struggling farm wineries through the creation of 2 additional liquor licenses. They already have the farm winery liquor license. Our text amendment is limited and surgical in creating and adding those 2 licenses to those that would be permissible in Wallingford. If you look at the draft that I've submitted, first and foremost, I made it mandatory, it was not mandatory in the reg, that anyone operating a farm winery must have a farm winery liquor license from Connecticut Liquor Control. Secondly, once you have the farm winery liquor license, you may have the option of additionally getting a manufacturer's liquor license. The manufacturer's liquor license would allow Paradise to use more outside grape to produce its wines than is currently allowed under the farm winery liquor license. So in a year where Wallingford grapes get destroyed, either partially or fully, Paradise would have the option of bringing in additional grape and bottling it pursuant to the manufacturer's license rather than the farm winery license. Currently, Paradise and every farm winery in Connecticut that I know of bring in some measure of outside grape juice to supplement their own if they don't have enough or if they're trying to achieve a certain taste which consumers like. And I can tell you this is nothing new. Italian immigrants in Wallingford 125 years ago were doing the same thing, using grapes grown in their backyard, supplemented by grapes brought in from New Jersey. Secondly, we're seeking the ability of a licensed farm winery. Again, that's the beginning part. You must be a licensed farm winery to also have a craft cafe liquor license. A craft cafe liquor license is a unique and very limited liquor license that would allow a farm winery to serve, in addition to its own products, the products of other Connecticut producers, but only Connecticut producers. So if they so chose, Paradise could serve wine from Gouveia Vineyards, beer from Center Street Brewing, and spirits from a number of the craft distilleries that are located in Wallingford. As long as that wine, beer, or spirits was made in Connecticut. Are there going to be a lot of people that go to a farm winery who want a beer? Probably not. but it makes it possible for Paradise to satisfy a broader base of customers while still holding to the concept of being local and drawing people into, the unique places which Connecticut possesses in its farm wineries. So that's the background to the text amendment. That's where we're coming from. We'd be glad to take questions.
Thank you. Commission members with questions for the applicant. Anyone? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to disappoint you by not having something to say.
Not at all.
Just a question, and thank you, Mr. Farrell. Regarding the craft cafe license, and you gave a good explanation, but what else does it open up for the vineyard or any vineyard? Like, first part of the question.
Craft Cafe, it's 2 or 3 years ago that the legislature created that, it is applicable on the site, let's call it the farm site. It's applicable on the farm site. I'm trying
Fair.
to figure out
Fair.
what you're looking for.
Well, if I could ask it this way, and I know your day job, so by your email, is there another place in town that has this type of license? A craft
Currently,
cafe license?
I don't think it's allowed. I could be wrong,
That's fine.
but I'm searching my mind to
Okay.
say, I don't think so. I mean, typically, when clients come to me and they're looking to do on-premise, the first question is usually regular cafe or restaurant. The only people asking me about craft cafe are people who are already in a farm winery business or a distilling business.
Okay.
So there may be some of those distilleries that have gotten craft cafe, but I have not represented them.
Okay.
That would be an oddity for Wallingford, but,
Can I chime in real quick, Jim? Bones and Botanicals on East Center Street, I believe, was Craft Cafe. That's
License.
one of the few I could remember.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kevin. And I guess the other question would be, but the town planner just answered it. So it could be a standalone license, but in this situation, they would need the primary license of the farm winery, and then the second license would they need 2 licenses?
No.
I'm trying to understand the license
the
issue.
only entity that is entitled to a craft cafe is somebody who already has farm winery,
There you go.
distillery,
Yep.
those kind of things.
Okay.
The craft cafe license came about because there were complaints from farm wineries, distillers saying we're very limited under the statute as it stood a couple of years ago, that we can offer samples, but we can't do tremendously more. So Craft Cafe was opened, it opened up the door a little.
Okay. My final question at this point is, if this were to be passed, would it affect any other vineyard in the town of Wallingford?
Anyone can apply if they have a farm winery. That's
If they
not
have
to
a farm,
say
yeah.
they will, but
Yep.
they would have the option.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you. Other commission members? Anyone else? Mr. Parent?
You said everything except one thing. The reason why you need the craft license, or is it the reason you need the craft license, is because of the uncertainty of the wine license, that you are looking for an additional source of income in order to keep the winery or that enterprise afloat. Is that the case?
I think it's the manufacturing license that we're looking for, that the distinction between a farm winery license and a manufacturing license is someone who has a manufacturing license does not necessarily have to use Connecticut-grown grape.
Okay. But again, like in the situation where the person gets, the farmer, through no fault of his own, gets his crop wiped out, then that allows him to operate and make a profit. And then the craft license is an additional source of income to keep the thing stable. Is that the argument, or is that the rationale for this?
I think the manufacturing one is the one that stabilizes many of these farm wineries, based on those that I talk to, that they find the weather challenging, they don't have enough of their own grape. I can tell you that's a long-standing problem, because if you go back 20 years ago, when I arrived at Liquor Control, I inherited an investigation of all farm wineries in the state over the percentage amount. And I guess somewhat being sympathetic to the plight of farm wineries, I dropped the investigation because I didn't think that was in the interest of the people of Connecticut. So it's a long-standing issue that, we want farm wineries, we want them to produce using their own grape, but this is not California, this is not Italy or France, that even those places are having problems given the climate. But we're trying to keep a unique industry for Connecticut, working and going forward. Sure, and Brenda has...
Mr. Parent, may I address that a little bit? I think I know what you're asking. For example, in our wonderful town, Center Street Brewing carries our wine, which is lovely.
Okay.
They support us. We do not have the ability to support another business in town. I cannot sell Center Street Brewing's beer. They would love for us to also support them. So when you're asking about the Craft Cafe license, I would like to reciprocate and be able to offer our own town's business also. And if you choose to come in and you would like to support Center Street Brewing and you would like to have one of their beers, it would be very nice for me to reciprocate and support another town's business.
And you do that and you would do
We
that,
can't-
well, you would do that with your Craft Cafe license.
Correct. We currently, right now, we cannot reciprocate and help out our neighborhood businesses in our town. Our hands are chained and shackled by not being able to do this, and yet they are so kind and they like to support us. And I know they also support Govea Vineyards, and they sell both of our wines at their brewery. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
No?
No. I mean, it seems to me, now, am I incorrect, or is it your belief that if you have the craft license, so that you can sell all this, sell this other stuff, and you got your full winery license so that you can use outside grapes when you have the grape, when you have the crop failure, that you have two sources of income that keeps the whole enterprise afloat?
Well, it would absolutely be a blessing to have some help. Right now, we have no help. So I'm not going to say that that scenario could never happen. With the grace of God, I hope that we're continued to be blessed. But any revenue is a great revenue, especially in today's market. So I'm not going to say no, but I can't, it's certainly, everything helps in every business today in the town of Wallingford. It's called diversifying. You want to diversify to stay afloat. We continue to farm, but unfortunately, we are subject to God and the weather.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were many letters that came in from a variety of folks. They're very supportive and say you're great neighbors, and I don't know you personally, but we take that at face value, and that sounds great. I do, though, have some concerns with as a process, the text amendment, that while you may be great neighbors, and this is an exemption, this carves out exemptions within existing zoning regulations, and other folks who come in after may not be such good neighbors, and do we lose ability from a perspective of the town to control, to have some control and say over what happens in different places? And as I ask that, I also want to mention that I do think it's important to allow for property owners to make reasonable uses of where they're at. So for example, if I had a product I wanted to manufacture, I live in a residential neighborhood, I'm going to have to do that manufacturing in a place that's approved for it for good reasons. So some of the things in here, I'm not sure that I fully understand the implications of expanding the licenses further, but particularly the line proposed added to thereafter attempt to grow the same, and talking about the average amount of crops and how much is produced. That's a little squishy for my comfort. I'm wondering what thoughts you may have on how to navigate through that.
Well, I did put that phrase in there because I acknowledge that there is the possibility there may be future farm wineries. So your existing regs had the initial part of the sentence. I added the word original to it, and then I added thereafter attempt to grow the same. As I was referencing a couple minutes ago, the state of Connecticut had a wide-ranging investigation on the whole percentage issue 20 years ago. And the state of Connecticut Liquor Control Division threw up its own hand saying, we don't know how to investigate this. You know, this is not like a chemical composition that we can say these atoms come from here, but these atoms come from there. A wine, you know, you're trying to tailor it to people's tastes. You know, in that particular batch, is there a little bit more of, you know, something that's a little sweeter to, you know, reflect the palate of the consumer? Very hard to try to pin down these percentages. So that's why I use the word attempt to grow the same. In effect, best efforts. And I don't know better how to police that than that. Again, that language refers to, you know, people who may come after. You know, does Wallingford have a lot of land that one could have a third farm winery in town? I'm not sure that it does. It could, but I don't see them on the horizon at the moment.
And understand that, Mr. Farrell, wondering, and thank you for the explanation, also wondering, you have represented some other clients, you've seen some other case law. Where does this, if we were to grant the text amendment, where does that move the zoning regulations that may be things that we are not considering that we should? What are we opening up?
I went to your definition because I thought that was the best place to amend it, that making it mandatory that you have the farm winery license and making it optional if you want these others. You know, the statute is a little unique in that it does allow for this kind of establishment to have multiple liquor licenses. That is generally not true of most other liquor licenses. You get a restaurant liquor license, you know, maybe you get a caterer and that's it as an additional license. That there's a part of the statute that specifically limits what additional licenses you can have. So, I mean, to get back to your question, I think the state statute limits it a lot as to how much the door gets opened. We can't speculate on what the legislature will do. We don't know. There is, and referencing both your question and that of Attorney Parents, that remember, anyone who applies for a liquor license, that can be opposed at the state level. There's what's known as the remonstrance, and 10 residents of the town can say, no, we don't want it. And one of the bases that they can say they don't want it is based on the location. And, you know, certainly that happens. Certainly the Liquor Control Commission adjudicates remonstrances every single year. So that's a check beyond just planning and zoning on where a liquor license is going to get approved ultimately.
I guess just a final question. If this were to be something that, rather than just a general regulation change, was to be allowed via special exemption, would that be sufficient?
Again, I went to your definitions section because I didn't want to monkey with your entire regulations. I viewed what I was doing as sort of surgical to do the least damage, and kept it to, you know, basically one sentence that I changed. I don't know how we'd go to your other regulations and not start changing them significantly.
Oh, fair enough. Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other commission members? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up with Mr. Sanders' line of questioning, I do notice that in the correspondence from the residents, several of them also mentioned the wording attempt to grow the same, and that actually is a little sticky for me as well, because I think, you know, that, you know, we want to have wineries, and wineries are there to produce wine. Those couple of words kind of give the impression or the allowance that, well, maybe they don't have to grow grapes at all on their vineyard. Not saying that is, you know, what they're going to do, because I think, you know, part of the attraction to the winery is the, you know, the grapes on the vines, and you know, the scene that presents when you're sitting out there having a glass of wine. So basically, why don't we just remove that?
You had a thought, Brenda?
I just want to say that at the present time, Paradise Hills is over 50% grown on our farm itself. The state of Connecticut requires 25%. Now, what happens is the market for Connecticut wine is only 5%. So the state of Connecticut came up with this manufacturer's license so that if anybody, you know, needs to make more wine, they can buy the manufacturer's license, and depending on the market or where they can sell their wine, this opens up more of the market to the Connecticut wineries. At Paradise Hills, we're very proud of our Connecticut product, and we expanded our vineyard to the point where we cover the demand. Having the manufacturer's license opens us up to a little bit of that rest of that 95%. And the original law was written in 1978, and that's why the state of Connecticut allows farm wineries to have this manufacturing license so that they can access more of the market.
I'd like to add to that. You mentioned wineries, and they don't grow a thing. How confusing is that to the public? We have urban wineries popping up all over the state, and we will have some coming to our own town. They don't grow one vine. They don't grow one grape. So you can go to wineries everywhere. I think it's rather confusing. I'm very, very passionate about what we do. And not to go on, but when we originally started this many, many, many years ago, we've been growers for over 45 years in the state of Connecticut. We started in Hamden. We picked Wallingford. We loved Wallingford. It's an agricultural community. It's friendly to farmers. And we said, wow, this will be wonderful. Let's go to Wallingford. I sold everything I ever owned in my life, and I bought the property. And I lived in my mother's basement for 3 years while we planted the fields. Not that you needed to know this, but okay, everybody thinks, when did you inherit it? It's been in your family forever. What, are you kidding me? We worked 4 or 5 different jobs, and we came here at night under lights till 10, 11 o'clock at night, planting the fields and picking up the rocks. And my poor children will tell you they were child labor doing this, okay? But, you know, when we did this, you had to be a farmer to have a farm winery. It was a law. You could not become a farm winery without farming, nor could you have a winery without farming. The state of Connecticut turned around and they got rid of all that, and they have now made it legal so you can have urban wineries. And you know what, kudos to them, and I think it's wonderful. And Paradise Hills is not afraid of the competition whatsoever. But talk about, you know, watering down. You're going to a winery, you get there and you see tanks, but all the grapes, everything that's coming in there is purchased from all over the United States, if not the world. But the average consumer has no clue. So yes, it's lovely to come to Paradise Hills. We are so meticulous in the season. We strive so hard. I still work like a dog and work a full-time job so that we could continue to employ all the people that we have. Because people, guess what? They really want their jobs. And we love this town, and we love farming. But the state of Connecticut did not make it mandatory that every single urban winery should have been mandated that, hey, they had to purchase Connecticut-grown grape and Connecticut wineries products. That didn't happen. So I guess I'm a little, you know, my family is also in farming. My sister-in-law has a dairy farm. We're all from the salt of the earth. And I just find that everybody's looking at, you know, we feel like we're squished and chained and shackled, that we can't do our job and we can't promote and we can't advance, you know. And Attorney Parent asked for, you know, what is this going to do? Attorney Parent, it's so hard. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning like farmers are, and we work till midnight at night, okay? And when I'm out there at 4:30 and we're pruning now and we're trying to get prepared, and we hope and pray to God we have a good harvest. So doing these things is the lifeblood of myself, my husband, my children, my grandchildren. I have, and even my mother, who's 95 years old, is out there working. You don't see that very often. But I didn't mean to go on to this whole thing, but Mr. Cohen, I'm like, when you said, it just burned me a little bit when you said it's melting down when you go to a winery and, you know, what are you seeing? Well, yes, when you come to our winery, you're going to see beautiful things. You go to Govea wineries, oh my God, beautiful things. This town has such a beautiful gift, and we're striving, and probably 95%, I shouldn't say that, I don't know how many, but a lot, and you could probably ask Mr. Pagani over here, how many wineries in the state of Connecticut have exactly what we're asking for? We are losing the market. We're losing the customers. People are going elsewhere. They're not coming and visiting Wallingford and spending the money at all the places that we should in this unbelievable town. And, you know, and I just think that we're a huge draw. And I hope that you really, really value us, and I hope that you look at us as an asset to our town, because I love Wallingford. I raised my children in here, and I would never do anything that was not absolutely pristine and up and up. And as far as Mr. Sanders, when you said things like, what is it going to do? You will see absolutely no difference in the day-to-day operations of our vineyard by allowing us to do these things. This just helps us to pay the bills. But as far as you coming to my establishment, you will just be blessed by everything that you see, and I hope we would make you very, very proud. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On the last sentence, to answer the question, as the drafter, I would say it's not necessary to us. I tried to put myself into your shoes and understand that there were already people who had these licenses or other people who would come forward afterwards, and that's why I tinkered with the language there. That's the only reason. I'll even sit back and say, I don't need to advocate for the changes to the last sentence. It's that initial one sentence that all of this somewhat depends on.
Thank you. I mean, that's, just my humble opinion, and, the rest of the commission, maybe wants to have that removed or not. And without getting too long-winded, I'm basically okay with this regulation change, importing, other grapes, selling other products. I'm okay with that, And I know that the hailstorm did cause a lot of damage. And, we do want to make sure you have a viable operation. But again, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to belabor the point. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Anyone else? Mr. Farrell, you mentioned as far as the craft cafe manufacturing license, it allows for, the sale of, wine, spirits, and beer. What else does it allow for the sale of?
Only the wine, spirits, and beer. So those are the three. They have to be Connecticut produced. So if somebody walks in and says, give me a Grey Goose is not made in Connecticut, but there are
I understand that.
many
As
other
far-
vodkas that
Sure.
are.
But as far as other things, as far as food and all of that, because that in fact, it was a pretty good letter because it kind of capsulized what I was going to ask from a Karen Murata. And I think, as you know, with some of the wineries, there's, ordinances as far as, sound, as far as what they can or can't do, as far as, that it's not a restaurant, a banquet hall. There's restrictions on special events, private events, charitable events. There's also all of those types of restrictions. By granting the craft cafe and manufacturing license, how will that impact those restrictions?
I didn't touch food because I know it could be a difficult issue for you. Now, in regard to food and liquor, over the last couple of years, there has been a watering down, that's the best phrase to use for it, of there were licenses that required that you have food. There's less liquor licenses that require food these days. So to my knowledge, there is no requirement that you have food, under the state statute. And in fact, liquor control has taken the posture of late that even if food is required under the statute, that this will sound odd, that you can have the takeout menus of the nearby Chinese and pizza establishments to meet your food requirements. So again, that traditional requirement that there be food with liquor has been significantly watered down. Again, as to the specifics here, we're not touching food, so I don't think it enlarges anything about food as far as Wallingford is concerned.
What I simply wanted to make certain that what, restrictions that we have in place right now with, as far as some of the items that, was noted here and which, were items that were just concerned, of me, that by granting that additional license, it doesn't impact any of the requirements that we have on the wineries.
I don't believe so. That's why I kept it so limited what I did with the existing regs I just made, in effect, that one sentence change. And I don't think there's a spill-off effect, as you're asking, on the food issue. Somebody would have to revisit the food issue under your regs for there to be a change.
Sure. Mr. Pagini, would you agree with that?
I think it's allowing more, so I'm just going to kind of ask the same question. How can we be assured that it won't expand the operation, I guess, essentially, with allowing manufacturing and craft cafe, but I think, he's not touching any of the restrictions, so.
So I guess just again, the question would be is the restrictions that we have right now, as far as, the sound, special events, all these other items, because I believe in some cases it only allows for private events once a month, certain things like that. And I'm not sure if that's specifically in our regulations or if it was with respect to a particular application.
There are accessory activities that are permitted as part of a farm winery, so you could have basically, events and promotions, the mobile food vendor.
No, I understand that, but what I'm asking you is and I'm not sure, and perhaps that needs to be visited, with, a specific, there may be with a specific application where there's these restrictions.
Yeah.
As far as what you can do and what you cannot do.
Correct, yeah, I don't have their site plan in front of me, but if they have more specific restrictions than, say, the other winery, then yes, they'd be subject to those restrictions plus.
So whatever restrictions there may be, those restrictions, by granting this additional license, those restrictions would still stay in place.
Yes, they wouldn't change. They'd be allowed to sell more products. I don't know if that would.
Yeah, no, again, as far as selling more products, initially when I saw this to, bring in to, sell beer and wine and all of that, initially I said, oh boy, now we're going to see the Bud Light trucks coming in. And that obviously is not going to happen. What it's going to be is simply local Connecticut products as far as beer, wine, and spirits. I don't have any issue with that. The only thing that I want to make certain is that there are certain restrictions that are placed on the wineries, and I think you folks realize that as far as what you can do and what you cannot do in the restrictions. I want to make certain that by granting this license, that it doesn't negate those restrictions, that those restrictions stay in place, whether or not the craft, whatever heck we call it, craft cafe license and manufacturing, if that says, boy, you can do all these various other things, that in fact, if our approval or regulations, approval on a particular application is there that doesn't allow that this would not negate it. That's my major concern. And I think that's concern of at least some of the, some of the neighbors who have, voiced, I won't say their concern, but just their opinions with respect to this. I just want to make certain that, there's not some unintended consequences that develop.
That's why I kept it to just the definition section rather than tinkering elsewhere. As simple as that.
Okay, let's keep it simple then. Again, this is a public hearing. Any members of the commission would like to come forward and comment on the application, please feel free. Oh, I'm sorry if there's any members of the public that would like to, thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons, who would like to come forward to comment on the application. Your name and address. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dave Fita, 1308 Scard Road. And our properties all but abut. I mean, they don't abut. We're close enough. We're neighbors. So I'm a local neighbor. I have no stock or interest in the winery whatsoever. But I would highly urge you to grant their requests. There's been, over the years, a lot of encumbrances on their business, and you could tell just from speaking with Brenda for 5 minutes how passionate they are and what a wonderful job they do up there at the winery. I think it's a testament to Wallingford. It's a great addition to Wallingford. But they have had problems. They have had problems mostly with regulations that inhibit their survival. I was about to say growth, but it's really survival. Normally, I'm a fan of regulations. I think that regulations are there to protect people, to protect consumers, to protect the public. In this particular case, though, we have regulations that are in conflict and actually hurting this wonderful establishment. The fact that their wine is for sale at a brewery downtown, yet they're not allowed to sell that brewery's beer at their winery, hurts them. And also Govea and everyone else in town. I think that we have to realize that the farm wineries in Wallingford are a treasure, are a gem. We should be proud of them, and we should support them. And so with that, I'm just voicing my approval for you to make this happen.
Good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Other than this young lady, is there anyone else who would like to speak from the public? Yes. See, this gentleman will be next in the back, and then, sir, we'll go to you to the left. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary Fida, 1308 Scard Road. And last summer, we had a devastating hailstorm. I mean, we got a new roof. Our neighbors across the street got a new roof. Our neighbors next door got a new roof, and so on and so on. I have a garden. It's about the size of this space right in front of us. My zucchini, cucumbers, and tomatoes were devastated. And in that moment, I realized, oh my, I can walk to both wineries. And as soon as I saw what happened to my garden, my heart melted for what happened to my neighbors. It is very important to support them. Climate, you can't predict these storms. I'm glad I wasn't home when it happened, but I saw video. So please, please support our beautiful neighborhood because I love living there. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to the gentleman in the back.
Good evening. Joe Govea, 1339 Whirlwindale Road, and I'm the owner with my family at the Govea Vineyards. I'm here to support the Paradise Vineyards, and I want to give you a little rundown about the history about the vineyards. When I first started, that was the 6th winery in the state. And the one time when I used to go to the meeting, there was 13 wineries that were always used to get together. Since then, out of those 13 wineries, as you probably noticed last week, it was another one went for sale. Out of 13, 10 they either sold, or they're for sale, or they're going to be, or they closed down. So yes, anything that you could support us would be a plus because things we did phenomenal. I'm not going to cry that we didn't do well. We did very well, but at times maybe too at the extreme. But I can tell you the last few years business has been way down. My numbers right now are compared to 2013. Okay, the difference in 2013, I was open 4 days a week. Now I'm open 7 days a week. Okay, so you can see the numbers are down, and I'll be more than happy to show anybody my numbers because I'm not embarrassed about it. So there's a lot of reasons why. One is this new winery license that came from the state would really hurt the farms. Any of you could open up a winery and not have any grapes. That means I could get the stuff from California. I buy the best grapes available, and most of them don't even bring grapes. They bring the wine, so it's going to be a better product. It'd be way cheaper because, to be honest, to grow grapes in Connecticut is extremely expensive because we got people working. People working every day of the week because I don't want to lose them because I'm going to need them in the spring to prune and to dye and to do all the stuff. That's why I keep these people going all year round. So to grow grapes in Connecticut is extremely, extremely expensive. So yes, and we do have a lot of restrictions. And in some of these laws, it's a little from way back, and I wish some of it could be changed. For example, you guys have been good enough to let us use the food trucks. Food trucks was excellent during COVID. We're no longer going to use food trucks because the business is not there, and they do not want to come out and spend the entire day there not doing business. Okay, as you can see, there's way more breweries now than there was there, so there's more places where people can spend the money. We also have an issue with some issues that we are not allowed certain things. Like, for example, we all know Tim Ryan, a super guy in town. He did so much for this town. He wanted to do a little get together in our winery through the bank. I guess he belongs to a bank, and he wanted to bring it. I had to tell him no. And he said, Joe, how could you say no? Well, because our rule says we cannot have any private events. We have to be closed at 8 and all the stuff. Another issue that we have, it's music. We cannot. We only have music once a week. It's Sundays from 2 to 5 in the middle of 140 acres, and you're not allowing me to have music outside. So we have to have music inside. So during the summer, people are outside and the musicians inside playing by themselves. So I would ask if possible, can we have music? That's one thing I'm asking. Can we have music outside? I'm only doing from 2 to 5. It's a Sunday, and we're never there. Now, and as far as Craft Cafe license, I believe there's more than 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in town. There's quite a few. For example, Words on Wood, they sell my wine. So they have a license. The coffee shop in my building, with the old Wells Fargo building, they got a liquor license. So they can sell the stuff. And I believe there's going to be an ice cream parlor in town that's going to sell wine. But we cannot sell beer. So the reason I'm asking for the beer and seltzer, and by the way, also seltzer, if I may, because if any of you want to go out for, let's say a Sunday night, a Sunday afternoon, you're going to go around and you want to go check out some beers, okay? One of you likes wine, the other one doesn't. Now, where winery are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that has the beer and wine. No, I don't think the beer is really going to help us out much in sales. I don't think some of the wineries did it to stop, but it gives you an option if you wanted to come in. And also, it stops other people from bringing beer in, because we have another issue where people bring their stuff in. So we do have some major issues with the stuff. I'm not here to ask you to allow us to do weddings, because if we did, we'd be the busiest place in town. Believe me, because every single day today we have 5 requests for showers, for weddings, and we don't do none of that stuff. So all I'm asking you, the music, if you allow us to do, again, it's going to be local beer, seltzer, and apple stuff from the vineyards. We'll buy the stuff from town. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Just to clarify, what we have right here is just simply an application for, the craft cafe in manufacturing. So that's all we're considering tonight. We're not considering music. We're not considering any of that this evening. That's not part of this, this application. But, yes, I believe you wanted to speak. Is that correct? And, sir, then we'll get to you.
I'm Lisbeth Steen Hackett. We are the absolute closest neighbors to Paradise Hills Winery. And I could talk for 2 hours, but I won't, because everybody wants to go home. But about the hailstorm, we are getting a new roof siding. We had a 20-year-old weeping willow that came down this close to our house. It looked like a war zone. It was August 26th. You can't believe what it looked like. I'm sure you've seen pictures from maybe your own houses or other neighbors. Garden, totally destroyed. So, and as far as this establishment, having been neighbors for 20 years, we've never had a problem. I can't foresee it being a problem if we have local beer sold at this place. And I feel like we should encourage local talents, like I said in the letter. We should encourage people to work together, to be happy for each other's success. And that's exactly what Brenda is talking about. She wants to share this place that sells their wine, vice versa. We should be together as one big family. And I'm so happy to see the Govea, the Paradise Hills being that kind of family.
Could you please just come a little bit closer to the microphone? It's not picking you up.
I don't know. Did anyone hear anything I said? Because I maybe just rambled. But anyway, I'm so happy that everybody is supporting each other in this town. It's a beautiful town. And that's why I urge you to support them with this license. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you. And this gentleman to my left. Any other members of the public who'd like to speak on the application, please raise your hand. If not, this gentleman will be our last member of the public.
Thank you for having me. I really don't like public speaking, so I'll try to be
Neither
brief.
do I.
Yeah. So I love Wallingford as well. I'm Connor
excuse me,
Makepeace.
sir.
Sorry.
Name
Yep,
and
I gotcha.
address.
Connor Makepeace. I operate the farm directly abutting Paradise and live at 150, which is right next door. I love the passion for Wallingford that's been expressed here. I love the passion for farming. I think this is all great, but I do just want to bring the discussion back to the fact that this is a residential area, right? And that these amendments, the hailstorm was horrendous. I mean, we're right next door. We got it as well. But it was just one event, right? So this text amendment is potentially permanent, okay? If we have certain restrictions that we want to add in, I know there was discussion about food and making sure that those stay in place. Maybe that can be written into the final text, right? So that's something to discuss as well. Yeah, I just want to make sure, that farming stays as being sold farming products, right? So this farm wineries, as I understand it, is an exemption in a rural area because it's a farm product, right? And I'd love to encourage that. But I don't want to necessarily, I don't know how much it's lowering the bar, but I don't want to lower the bar to too much, right? So I just wanted to say that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, seeing no other members of the public would like to comment on the application, I'll bring it back to the commission if they'd like to make any final comments. And Attorney Farrell, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
We're
Okay.
good.
And again, I guess, yeah, Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, I don't think I was clear earlier when I spoke, but I think this text amendment makes sense. And I applaud Mr. Farrell because you used the term, it was surgical in how you applied, and listening to the speakers and reviewing the regs, and I've sat up here for a few years, the text amendment is the way to go. And I think, and I apologize, I was on my phone because someone had sent us the Connecticut Craft Cafe permit, but it wasn't really clearly legible. So I reread it, but I think your letter to us basically makes it clear. It was created just a few years ago to give farm wineries the ability to serve more Connecticut-made products. So I could support this. And I think even as I reread the regs, which would be up to the town planner to make sure that the food issue, I think, is kind of even addressed in that. You know, they don't have to do food, and it doesn't open up that door, so to speak. So it does make it clear that it is focused primarily on this type that they're asking for. So I could support this request. In addition, because this would impact others, meaning any other farm, vineyard in town, depending how we vote, I would be in favor of, if there's a consensus, of returning their fee, because it is a regulation change that would impact others, and it wouldn't be the sole benefit of Paradise. But I think because it's a text amendment, I understand you made the application to be before us, but if there's support for that, I would be happy to make a motion to return their fee on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm not returning it. I would note, the state permit is less than what we're charging for you to sit in those chairs, because that was something I read. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Any other commission members? Again, I would just say, as I mentioned before, I certainly support this. In fact, after hearing, as far as urban wineries, I mean, whoever came up with that name. But anyway, it certainly seems to be you folks are at a disadvantage with respect to that. So I have no issue with this to allow the wine, the spirits, the beer, and all of that. And again, I think as one of the members of the public said, I don't think you're going to find a lot of people coming over to Paradise Hills to buy a beer. I think what you're going to do is you're going to find people, people with different tastes. So you come out and I suspect the majority of the people that are going, the overwhelming majority of the people that are going to come to your winery is because they want to enjoy your wine. Or as with any of the other wineries in town, it's not because, gee, I can get some, I can get some beer or whatever. It's just, as I indicated before, I want to make certain that there's no unintended consequences here, and hopefully, Mr. Pagini, you're listening to me also, that the restrictions that we have on the existing wineries, that those restrictions don't go away, that all this does is allow for the sale of the wine, the spirits, and the beer. That's all, nothing else. And as long as I have those assurances, and do we have those assurances, Mr. Pagini?
Yes, any of those wouldn't go away.
Yeah. So with that, I certainly would, would support this. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want
Sanders.
to confirm, as we move to voting, are we in agreement of striking the and thereafter attempt to go to the same from the end of the proposed amendment?
I see Mr. Fitzsimmons shaking his head, and I suspect Mr. Cohen agrees. I agree, so, and Mr. Vanoy agrees. So with that, if there's no further questions from the applicant, no further questions from the commission, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for application 501-4, text amendment, Paradise Hills Vineyard, section 2.2, farm winery.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 501-25, text amendment, Paradise Hills Vineyard, section 2.2, farm winery, to include allowance for manufacturing, craft cafe liquor license, because regulations are better defined, what is more suitable to the industry and state, with the exception of striking and thereafter attempt to grow the same.
Second. May I amend that?
Yeah, I think you want to amend it for
I'm
the...
going to get rid of the fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
different.
okay.
That's a different
Sorry.
motion.
Sorry.
Okay.
Different motion.
I'll second your first motion.
I have a second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes.
Now you want, now.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, is it return the application fee that Paradise Hills Vineyard used for application 501-5 because it impacts more than one potential applicant.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Have a good evening. Much success.
Thank you
with your
very
business.
much.
You're welcome. It brings us to our next item. It's site plan revision, pedestrian bridge, Choate Rosemary Hall, 59 North Elm Street, 356 Christian Street, 203 North Elm Street. If the applicant would please come forward to begin preparing for his presentation. And if Mr. Cohan, if you would please note all correspondence for the record.
We have a memorandum from Choate Rosemary Hall to Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, dated February 27th, 2025. We have a memorandum from the Department of Engineering to the Planning and Zoning Commission, dated February 27th, 2025. We have a letter from Allison Kapuscinski, the town engineer, to the town planner, dated March 4th, 2025. We have a interoffice memorandum from Peter Hornack, Water Sewer Division, to Kevin Pagini, town planner, dated February 25th, 2025. We have correspondence to the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission, dated March 5th, 2025, from Phil Euchre, 29 Curtis Avenue. We have a letter from Dennis Senaviva to town planner and the Wallingford Law Department, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Robert Hake, Choate Rosemary Hall Student Body President, to the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission and the town planner, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Victoria DeVito. There's no date on it, but it's to the Wallingford Town Council. We have a letter from Jennifer Hilligan Santa to Kevin Pagini, town planner, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Anthony Parent to the town planner, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Ray Mungo to the zoning department, dated March 7th, 2025. We have another letter from Donald Altscher to the town planner, dated March 7th, 2025. We have a letter from Mike Kolakowski to the town planner, dated March 10th, 2025. We have a letter from, and that's it. This is the next step.
Jeff, did you just note that? That was somehow appeared on the
Okay,
table.
I'll have that. Yeah, I have that. And we also have a bridge easement agreement. I believe this is from Corporation Counsel.
I
Choate?
suspect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cohan. At this point in time, if the applicant please introduce themselves and begin their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For your record, my name is Dennis Senaviva. I'm an attorney with the Senaviva Law Firm representing the applicant. To my immediate left is Patrick Durbin, the Chief Financial Officer of Choate Rosemary Hall. And to his left is Darren Overton, our project engineer from SLR Engineering Firm, who'll be making the technical portion of the presentation tonight. The application, as you know from our submission, involves a request for approval of the pedestrian bridge proposed by Schott in an effort to address concerns raised by commissioners, Schott's own administration, and the public with regard to pedestrian and vehicular safety, particularly at at-grade crossings across the Schott campus. We are here this evening after the completion of a few necessary preliminary proceeding steps, including town council approval of an easement for this pedestrian bridge over Christian Street, as just noted in the record, and the action taken by this commission at its December 9th, 2024 meeting amending the zoning text with respect to walkways, thereby removing any need to seek zoning relief for the bridge abutments located in the setback areas. Before we begin our short presentation, I did want to thank your town staff for their comments, questions, and suggestions, which helped us make this proposal the best possible design and layout as we proceed this evening. So, Mr. Chairman, members, we're going to have Darren go up to the board. He's going to present to you a couple of points. One is the specific location of the proposed bridge. I know you have the plans. Hopefully, we can identify the location more specifically for those of you who have any confusion or uncertainty. We're going to talk about the linear pedestrian walkways on either side of the bridge itself and the use of low-impact development principles to ensure that the project will maintain current flows and water quality of runoff when completed. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to Mr. Overton.
Good evening. For the record, Darren Overton from SLR Consulting. So this is a copy of the site plan with the grading that was submitted as part of the application. On this area here, the bridge is located between Rosemary Lane here that extends north off of Christian Street. Old Durham Road is just off the map here further to the east. So the bridge is sort of located between those two roadways, a little bit closer to Rosemary Lane. We have the Colony Hall parking lot here where many people park for athletic events. And then on the other side, on the south side of Christian Street, we have the athletic facilities. So what this linear connection, the pedestrian access, seeks to do is provide a connection for the formalized parking here in Colony Hall and also other uses during a regular school day as part of the Rosemary Hall campus and Schott, provide pedestrian connection across Christian Street that doesn't utilize an at-grade crossing. So it'll serve to convey pedestrians across Christian Street in a north-south manner during the normal school day, as well as for athletic events, and eliminate the need to cross at grade either here at Rosemary Lane or up near further to the east here is the parking lot, handicap parking lot for the athletic facilities. So what we have was we've added in a pedestrian path, basically a sidewalk and a crosswalk coming from the Colony Hall parking lot. There's a crosswalk across Rosemary Lane, and then we have a sidewalk coming up to a set of stairs up to a landing. And then we also have a secondary path, which is the accessible route to get anybody in a wheelchair that needs an accessible route up to this landing and then over the bridge. So these portions of the walkway are paved or concrete stairs, and then the brown portion you see here is actually an elevated wooden boardwalk or bridge. So coming off of that landing is an elevated boardwalk that comes over to the bridge abutment. Then there's a timber bridge with a railing on top that goes across Christian Street. And then right here we have, again, another elevated boardwalk that brings you from the height of the bridge down to the existing grade, down to a grassed area here, where, currently this is the path where most pedestrians travel coming north or south across Christian Street between the two areas on both sides. So this is an elevated wooden boardwalk. We started to look at this in stormwater management. We actually considered having a stormwater basin here. We started looking at comps, and then we started to think, that the grading and the changes that we proposed here, this is really a linear type of facility that we're adding here. So we thought, well, is there a way that we can kind of disconnect the pavement, maintain existing drainage patterns, and avoid having a new stormwater basin on the site and to collect and control the stormwater? So what we looked at is the actual pathway itself. Sheet flows surface water off in both directions, and we have this comes from a high point over here near the open field area, and basically is a gentle grade down towards either Christian Street or Rosemary Lane. Along Rosemary Lane, existing conditions, there's a grass swale that comes down to a catch basin and a low point here. So there's a collection area for this overland flow that comes down and then gets into the drainage system and down into Gunpowder Creek. So we thought, could we mimic existing conditions? Well, with the linear fashion of the walkway itself, the elevated boardwalk, which is porous, well, really we just have a very narrow impervious surface that's going to sheet flow to either side into this expansive vegetated area, and it really isn't going to change the runoff because it's all pretty much disconnected. So the only issue we had was we have this access drive coming up to overflow parking in the grass field. We had originally considered this as just standard pavement, and we thought, well, if we can't really avoid having stormwater management and collection if we have this as standard pavement. So we threw out the idea of doing porous asphalt. With the porous asphalt, any of the rainwater that falls onto the pavement or that runs onto the pavement has the opportunity to actually filter through the porous asphalt down into the stone layer underneath and then infiltrate into the natural soils underneath, very similar to what we had in existing conditions. We posed this to Schott, this low-impact development type of design. They were in agreement. They've considered this before, but for certain reasons, it is much more expensive. It's probably double the cost of standard asphalt. When we compared some of the costs, it really made more sense to do the porous asphalt. It's a greener solution. It eliminates a lot of long-term maintenance for a stormwater management system, and it eliminates the collection and concentration of surface runoff that then leads us into creating a stormwater management system. So a greener design, it matches the existing runoff patterns more consistently than doing a collection system. So that's what we've proposed as part of this. We did do a summary of the disconnected stormwater design with the linear types of features, and we sent that in as part of the application. It's been reviewed by the town engineer. We did have a separate meeting with the town engineer to discuss this before we formalized the application, and she was in agreement that this was a good approach, and so we proceeded with it, and that's how we presented it as part of the submission before you. So I just have a couple renderings if you're wondering what the bridge looks like. I think some of you may have seen these before, but I'll just present them now. This is kind of a view looking up from Rosemary Lane of what the bridge may look like. Some artist interpretations here, but it's a general interpretation of what the bridge, you can see the elevated wooden boardwalk coming in here from the vegetated knoll, basically the landing area that's going to be landscaped, coming over here, and then you'll see the boardwalk that leads down to the athletic fields is generally going through the existing trees there and is kind of hidden from view for the most part. You see there's an outline of a wooded area to remain here and also here. So if you're driving on Christian Street, the majority of this boardwalk just kind of disappears into the wooded area. And then I have the one more rendering here that shows a little bit more of a close-up of the bridge. So the bridge itself is a 66-foot glulam beam span. Here's the decorative metal railing alongside of it. There's abutments on each side, so a 66-foot span. The roadway itself is about 29 feet wide from face of curb to face of curb under the bridge. And then from the white lines here to actually the face of the abutment, it's 20 feet on one side, it's almost 18 feet clear on the other. So the bridge has been designed to meet the DOT standards for clearance, which is 17.5 feet from the road surface to the bottom chord of the glulam beams. And then we've also, the abutments are located beyond the clear area that DOT requires. So a vehicle going off the road, there's a clear space there where it's, the abutment's not right against the road and becomes a hazard. So the abutments are located beyond the clear zone area that's required by DOT. The bridge will meet all the DOT requirements. So that is all I have to present at this point. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from the commission for the applicant? Mr. Cohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I really don't have any issues with the application, but you did say this is a rendering. This may not be the actual design of the bridge. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, it's more like the vegetation. We took some photos and we've put in the vegetation similar to what we see in the photos. The bridge itself is a very close depiction of what you will see.
So how will it be different? I mean, it's close, but it's not exact what we're looking at.
Minor detailing, verifying loads and things like that. The depth of the beam may vary an inch in depth. It's going to be a wood glue lam beam like you see in the rendering. It's going to have the black metal railing like you see.
Okay, so the supports, though, are going to be like we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
The stone appearance on the abutments.
It looks great.
The finishes will be representative of what you see there.
Okay. The other, I've got two other questions. There's not going to be anything like benches or any other thing on the bridge. It's just going to be, the walkway.
A clear walkway, meeting pedestrian design standards, potentially the railing, curbing along the base, but no, it'll be a clear open walkway.
No
So-
benches.
Okay.
No benches.
And my last question is, looking at the bridge, there's no signage, and it kind of corresponds to, changing some of our sign regulations. And not that I really have an opinion one way or the other at this point, but I'm not going to see, maybe just a, keystone or cornerstone that says 2025 or 2026, but I'm not going to see Choate Rosemary Hall somewhere on the bridge.
I think we certainly will comply with your sign regulations, so whatever those requirements are.
I don't think we have sign regulations for this. That's really my point. So maybe,
I don't know that we've had the level of detail. Perhaps Patrick can respond to that in terms of what is going to be suggested or permitted to put on perhaps one of the structures, one of the abutments, to just identify the pedestrian bridge. There's not going to be any signage of any, certainly commercial nature. There's no banners. I was looking at your regulations. But I think you do have some kind of memorial signage that you permit generally in those regulations. It'll just memorialize, I don't know if it'll be just date, but something modest to reflect the fact that it's...
that's fine.
If I could, I think just to follow up, if you don't mind, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, whatever there may be, if there's a plaque or something on the abutments, I'm not sure if Mr. Cohen is referring to this, but I think I would. As far as on the bridge itself, there won't be any signage on the bridge. Is that correct? I think.
Well, that's exactly
I think
it.
I think Mr. Cohen's concern, which would be my concern. If you want to put a plaque on the abutments or anything like that, but signage on the bridge, to me, that's another issue. What you're projecting to us is, I think, very attractive, and I'd hate to see some kind of sign on that would take away from the attractiveness of the bridge.
Patrick, you can respond.
Yeah, I think the final design of the railings haven't been done, and so we have no plans to put a sign on the bridge. There will not be an attachment.
So you spell Choate out on the railings?
I mean, I don't know. That is done in some places. We haven't gotten that far in that design. We're waiting for approval before we can move into final design.
Okay. But again, the idea as far as a sign, you would agree with the commission that would be inappropriate?
Yes, we don't plan to
a sign on your abutments, but a sign on the bridge, that would be inappropriate. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I want to make sure we're talking, I don't want this to be a semantic
No, I understand.
issue.
I understand. Okay. All right, Mr. Cohen, if you have other...
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I do support it. I think it looks great. The location, you guys have, verified that. It's great.
Is it good? Mr. Fitzsimmons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. First, and it kind of is a follow-up to Commissioner Cohen's question. What about lights, lighting, any lights? I know conceptually, it's a rendering. Do I see lights on the plans that I missed?
No, you see them on there.
The street lights, if you will, on the bridge, is that the only lighting proposed at this time? Or, because your campus lighting would be related to the walkways, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And there are, in fact, all of the lights are on our property, but on top of both abutments is where essentially that's how the bridge is lit.
Okay.
They're down lights similar to how the street lights are down lights up there now.
Okay, thank you. And then I was concerned, personally, I most people up here know my day job's insurance. Things happen at bridges, boats and barges hit them, and insurance companies have to, write the check. The height of the bridge, if I confirm, is in line with Connecticut's DOT requirements, correct?
Correct.
All right. What we don't have from our package, and I'm looking at the town planner, is comments from the fire marshal's office or the fire chief saying that all of the Wallingford fire equipment will fit under the bridge. Has that been confirmed, Kevin, or was that discussed at the town staff meeting?
I discussed with the fire marshal. He did not have any comments that were within his jurisdiction on this bridge. So therefore, he did not submit any comments.
Yeah. Only, and I had the opportunity, I met Wallingford's new fire chief just a few weeks ago. I mean, we have large fire equipment. So if it's built to state DOT requirements, then our fire equipment should fit underneath the bridge. I'm looking at you.
Yeah. The DOT standards are based on having clearance to the maximum vehicle size that's allowed on a road in Connecticut. So there is clearance. There should be no vehicle allowed on the road that would have it impact that bridge.
And I know you're from Connecticut. We've all driven the Merritt, where you always occasionally see the truck that shows up on the Merritt, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, and again, it happens. I mean, whether you're in North Haven or Lower Fairfield County, you see it. So, what I also don't see, and this is to the town planner, is this application ready for action?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right, because both the town engineer and water and sewer were asking for additional comments. Do we have anything fresh from them other than the February 27th memo?
No, they told me they were set with everything.
Do we have anything in writing?
Yeah, it was the email from Allison on the last one that just had one condition of approval. And water and sewer was set with the last.
Is it dated later than February 27th?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Did it come today? Sorry.
March, let's see. It was March 4th. So I've reviewed the.
Oh, it's email, it's 2503?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, sorry, thank you. And then the other thing, I just want to, I'll shorten it up. Last question. This rendering here shows your very nice split rail fence that I see all on your Trope property. Is that on the plans that I didn't see it? Okay.
It is on the plans.
It is on
yes.
the plan. So that would be, because what my concern would be, as long as the fencing is up there, you're not going to have people saying, I'm going to race you underneath the bridge. So and again, it still could happen, but there will be appropriate fencing. Is it on both sides? Because this rendering only shows the fence on one side. And I know it's just a rendering, but I just want to make sure on the plans, I couldn't, it's real small, but is the plan to have fencing on both sides underneath the bridge to discourage that type of activity, so to speak?
I don't have the site plan in front of me either, but we are happy to put it on both sides. Our intent is that no one crosses at grade in that entire span, and so we will do everything we can to limit that. The reason it may not be on the south side is because the boardwalk begins so far away from the road, and then it's wooded, that it really wouldn't make no one should find their way to the road at that point. And that's why, too, on the north side, we're putting the fence in addition to a berm, because
Right.
the way we're designing this is that so people use it. We have no interest in building a bridge that won't get used or that people will find a way to bypass.
Right. I just, as I said, the level of detail on the fencing, you have very nice split rail fence on the, this is all done to discourage
Yes.
street crossing, you use the bridge, but people, it's not just kids, it's people, so
Yes.
I just ask you to consider that while you're doing it, but assurance is it's on at least one side, but I think part of it is just the concern of things happen. So, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members? Mr. Sanders.
I'll keep it brief because Councilor Fitzsimmons asked the questions. Maybe I have a future insurance. I don't know. Yeah, the lighting and discouraging people from taking the shortcut. It may be actually less Schott students, but more other people who say, I don't have time to go up, climb the bridge, and come back down. So I appreciate that, and I would say that perhaps even landscaping can be used as part of that too. On the lighting, though, my concern is, it sounds like the lighting will not be sufficient to be disruptive to traffic. But what about lighting across the bridge, perhaps at foot level, just illuminating across the bridge for people crossing at night? Do we have adequate lighting at the bridge surface for people walking?
We do, based on the lights we currently use really all over our campus. I believe they're 80-foot on center typically, and this is a 60-foot span roughly. And so we will have lights on both sides of that. And I believe they'll be double-headed. So we're confident that we will be lighting that bridge and the bridge surface itself. So anyone traversing it in the dark will have plenty of light to navigate it.
So with that, and I apologize if I didn't pick this up from the rendering, but does the bridge have a slight crown to it? Or is it fairly flat across? Because the reason I ask is that if we have lights on either end and it's not a linear straight across, would there potentially be some lighting issues as you approach the crown of it for pedestrians?
By the poles?
14 feet.
So they're 14-foot high poles.
So
I don't think that would leave, if there is a crown or an arch in the glue lamp, that wouldn't leave a dark spot because the poles on each side at most 70 feet apart, at each abutment would at a 14-foot height would still cast light all the way across the entire bridge.
Awesome.
Coming in from both sides.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And I also wanted to say that I think that the pervious asphalt is a great idea, and eliminating the need for drainage basins, nice thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other commission members? I think as far as the lighting, I guess if we're concerned about lighting on the bridge at night, I mean, there's always the option of putting, much like you see on an airplane, just very low, that type of emergency lighting, which is certainly, it's not going to be seen from the roadway, but people walking across the bridge, it would give them some light. But as far as the snow removal, ice removal, how is that going to be addressed? I'm sure, certainly listening at the months ago when town council took up the request for the easement, there was questions concerning ice, snow removal. Certainly, people have concern about falling on cars. I mean, obviously, there's bridges going across roads all the time, but how is that going to be would be addressed?
Sure. Our goal is to prevent icicles from happening, so our plan is to remove the snow, so to get out of the thaw freeze pattern. We currently clear miles of walkways, both in the public right-of-way that abuts our campus and throughout our campus every winter, and so this will be added to the route, and so we plan to clear the bridge and the boardwalk and the walkways leading to it after any snow or ice event. Okay,
so basically let's call it your normal maintenance that you do on all your other walkways. The other thing when I was listening to the town council meeting people were concerned about, the speed of vehicles coming down Christian Street. And I know that, this addresses some of that. And, there was one comment, well, maybe we should put a speed bump in there. But just a thought, because you still have the traffic speeding there, to perhaps, and certainly I wouldn't make it a condition of approval, but just a conversation for Schott to have with our police department to put permanently one of those, the signs that go up there, the flashing signs, here's the speed limit, this is your speed, and when you exceed it, the numbers go red. Just perhaps have that conversation, see if that's something that the police chief, the police department would be interested in pursuing. And if they were, I suspect Schott would be very gracious to pay for that.
You are correct, and that's actually, we've had discussions already, not with the police department yet, because I don't know, and we're happy to have that conversation, but I don't know how, if they would kind of let us do it. But we've talked about purchasing one ourselves to put it there and then coordinating with the police department. So we're on the same page, and we'd be happy to do that if the police department would allow that.
Sure, no, I think that would be great. And again, I want to, compliment you folks on just at the various crossings with those flashing signs. And now I see that, some of your students who may be challenged that can't just push a button, now a lot of them, it's somewhat remote if you just simply walk by. And I know my wife and I feel somewhat guilty when we walk by and we're not crossing, but they start flashing. But I compliment you on that. With that, this is not a public hearing, but is any members of the public that would like to speak on the application, please raise your hand and come forward. Seeing none, I'd ask the commission if there's any final comments that anybody would like to make. Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you were talking, I thought of something, because I mentioned the Merritt, and one of the things is, when you're driving down the Merritt, you see the sign that says bridge clearance ahead. I don't see those signs here. Is that a state requirement or a town requirement, or is it a nice to have? Because, you're approaching, I think of the giant charter buses that bring the Deerfield kids. It'll fit, right? But my son drives a truck that's lifted, and it always concerns me. You're going to make sure you have room. You need to know the distance. Is there, whether they're here or not here, just curious what the requirements are and what your plan is.
I don't want to jump the gun, but I think there's a member of the public that would like to perhaps
He's complaining
comment
about
on that.
my son's truck being too loud.
Good evening. William Wright, 510 North Main Street, for the record. So state law, maximum height of a vehicle without an otherwise permit is 13 feet 6 inches. This is going to be 17 feet. So where you see those signs, low bridge ahead, is any bridge in the state that's not 13.6. This would be higher than that, and so certainly the sign is not required.
There you go. Okay.
Thank you.
And then the last comment, I know we're, you were talking about the signage on the bridge.
Yes, that's
right?
correct.
So I happen to live near Moses Y, where the town has a banner.
Oh, I know that.
All the time. Is that what your concern is on this bridge, or a permanent sign that would say Schott on the bridge? Because that banner is, and the town puts it up, it's a town right away, it's a town air rights. The town's given them the right to use the air rights for the bridge. Are we saying, as part of our approval, no signage? Or no elevated? Because I can envision a banner being in a college,
I guess
or school.
there's no we here. It's just a matter of what individual people, what their sense is. And from my sense, I look, it's an attractive bridge. I'd like to keep it as an attractive bridge without any signs, banners, any of that. I understand, the town puts these banners out, what's in front of Town Hall, Moses Y, all of that. I get that. But from my perspective, I look at it, I think it's a very attractive bridge. I like the rendering. From my standpoint, I'd like to see it remain that way. All but, some type of recognition on the abutments. But again, that's simply my feeling. With that, I guess with that, would the applicant like to make, before I call for a motion on the application, would the applicant like to make any further comments? And I see Attorney Senaviva is feverishly going through his.
I was looking at the
papers.
easement document itself to see if there was anything about signage, which there isn't, but, that was my last comment.
Just as it relates to signage, I can confirm that we will not be hanging things. We will not be putting banners on that bridge. We will.
So making that
want
a
to keep
condition
it-
of approval, you'd have absolutely no concern about that.
No.
Good. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Choate Rosemary Hall pedestrian bridge, application 201-25, site plan approval request for Choate Rosemary Hall to construct a pedestrian bridge over Christian Street on plans entitled Site Plan Layout and Landscaping, dated February 7th, 2025, and revised to March 5th, 2025, subject to, 1, comments from the Water and Sewer Division dated February 25th, 2025. 2, comments from the town engineer, Allison Kapczynski, dated February 27th and March 4th of 2025. 3, comments from Kevin Bigini, town planner, dated February 27th, 2025. 4, inlet protection to be installed for catch basins in Christian Street. 5, excavation permit is required from the Department of Engineering for any work within the right-of-way. 6, erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $4,500. 7, 6 copies of final plans forward to the Planning and Zoning Office. 8, fencing to be placed on both sides of the bridge on Christian Street. And 9, no banners on bridge.
Thank you. We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application's been approved. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, it brings us to our next item, item number 5, town purchase of 352 Main Street in Yalesville. And Mr. Pagini I take it you are going to present this application to us, or
Yes.
request to us.
So the town is looking to purchase 352 Main Street in Yalesville, which abuts the linear trail. It's roughly over near the condo complex next to the Anthony's Pizzeria and the Taco Plaza there. So there's no plans yet as to what they're doing with it. They're just looking to purchase it, and in the future, they are looking to come back for further approvals for the actual site plan, and they don't have a full plan as of yet, so I think they're just looking for right now approval to purchase the property.
So what I guess I think I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, the purchase of the property for perhaps the intended uses for an expansion of for the linear trail, is that correct? I mean, to somehow or either expand it or make the linear trail more accessible. Is that fair to say, or am I?
Yes, the parcel does go to the back and connects to the existing easement, so they're looking to potentially, instead of going through the condo, to go through this property and make it more pedestrian accessible and perhaps more accessible for vehicles, but there's no plan as of yet, so I didn't want to jump the gun.
Yeah, no, but the general intent is to buy it for that purpose, although as far as any plan, whatever plan they come up with, obviously would have to come before the commission.
Yes.
Okay. Questions from commission members? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I have read, and again, there's no concrete plans, but what they want to do is knock the house down, build a parking area, and it's going to be the entrance and exit for the linear trail. So,
thank you.
Essentially, I think that's their intent. You know, they said it's all kind of contingent on, the wetlands process, other things, so they didn't want to do something concrete yet, but.
Other commission members with any comments?
Just a quick comment. So this is planning and zoning approving town council?
What's the motion, Mr.
Yeah,
Pagini?
just so I.
It's just sorry, I forgot the motion. It's just Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 for the commission to approve the purchase of property at 352 Main Street, Yalesville.
Okay, we're not approving the sale, we're approving
The purchase.
purchase that goes through. Okay.
Mr. Pacini, if you could just, please just repeat one more time for Mr. Benoit as far as what the motion should be, and do it slowly, please.
So just a Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 to purchase property at 352 Main Street, Yalesville, because, and then you can fill in the rest.
Take it away.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the town purchase of property of 352 Main Street, Yalesville, through Connecticut General Statute 8-24, because this will be an extension of the Quinnipiac Linear Trail from Firewood Island to Route 150.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes. All right, Mr. Pagini, if you would please carry us through the rest of the agenda.
Bond release, there's still some things that were not done on the original site plan, so I have to go through that and trying to figure out for next meeting what needs to be done and see if that can be released. But as of right now, it's not ready. Administrative approvals, any questions on those? Any questions on ZBA February decisions? And any questions on the ZBA meeting of next week?
Anyone have any questions on any of those items mentioned by Mr. Pacini? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, March 10th, 2025.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstentions? We're adjourned. Have a good evening, gentlemen. And lady.